All right, let's dive into a fantastic story about big talk and even bigger appetite and one of the most embarrassing failures you'll ever hear about. This all comes straight from the pages of the epic Journey to the West. We've all seen it, right? Someone steps up, super confident for a job they are just not ready for. Well, this story is the perfect example of that. And honestly, it's pretty hilarious to see how quickly things can go wrong when your ego writes checks your body can't cash. Okay, so our story kicks off in the royal court of the Baoxiang Kingdom. And let me tell you, things are not going well. We find a king who is just completely lost in despair. Now, into this scene walks our hero, the traveling monk Tang Seng, along with his disciples. They've just arrived at the palace, and they're not just passing through, they're carrying a message. A pretty important one, actually, a letter from the king's daughter, who's been missing for years. So you can imagine the king reads this letter and he just breaks down. He learns that his daughter, who he thought was gone forever, was actually kidnapped by a monster 13 years ago. He immediately turns to the monk and begs him for help. But, there's a problem. The holy monk says, "Look, I can chant sutures for you, but fighting demons? That's really not my department." And in that little moment of hesitation, one of his disciples spots an opportunity for some serious glory. And who steps up? It's Zhu Bajie, of course. You might know him as Pigsy. He puffs out his chest and makes this huge, booming promise, basically telling everyone that he is absolutely the man for the job. But here's the thing. The narrator gives us a crucial little piece of inside info right away. We're told that our so-called hero stepped up without knowing his ability. In other words, he's all talk. He's craving the fame, but he totally lacks the skills or the self-awareness to actually pull it off. This is some classic foreshadowing right here. Now the king, he has no idea about any of this. He's just overjoyed by the promise. So to show his gratitude, he immediately throws a huge vegetarian banquet for our heroes. So how does a great warrior prepare for a life or death battle? You'd think maybe meditation or sharpening his weapon, right? Well, not for Zhu Bajie. His idea of preparation is just eating and eating and eating until he is absolutely, completely stuffed. So he and his loyal junior brother, Sha Wujing, they finally show up at the monster's hideout. Bajie's belly is swollen up like a giant ball, and he announces his arrival not with a mighty war cry, but with, you guessed it, a loud, obnoxious belch. He then tries to lay down the challenge to the yellow-robed monster, kind of stammering about rescuing the princess and all that, before, interrupting himself with another huge belch. Not exactly the most intimidating start to a fight, is it? The monster isn't scared, not even a little bit. He's just enraged by this pathetic, belching challenger, and immediately attacks. The fight is on. But I use the word fight pretty loosely here. It is short. After maybe 8 or 9 rounds, that's it. Our overstuffed, totally out-of-shape hero is already panting and completely exhausted. And what he does next is it's unbelievable. He turns to his companion, Sha Wujing, the guy who came to help him, and asks him to hold off the super powerful monster all by himself so he can, take a little break. And this says everything about his character. He doesn't just step back for a second, he completely bails on the fight, finds himself a nice, comfy patch of grass, lies down, and just goes to sleep. Right in the middle of the battle he volunteered for. As you can probably guess, this decision, it has immediate and totally disastrous consequences for everybody else involved. So poor Sha Wujing is left to fight this monster all by himself. And he's no match for him. It only takes 2 or 3 hits before he's overpowered and captured. Now the monster's putting 2 and 2 together. He realizes how the pilgrims found him, so he drags the princess out and just starts furiously screaming at her right in front of the captured Sha Wujing. The whole situation has gone from bad to catastrophic. So let's just recap for a second. Zhu Bajie promised, "I will capture that monster." The results? He took a nap. He promised, "I will rescue the princess." The results? He got his ally captured. He promised to deliver justice, and instead, he made the whole situation 1,000 times worse. His boastful promise didn't just fail, it actively put everyone he cared about in even more danger. This story is such a timeless lesson about competence, teamwork, and the real dangers of promising more than you can deliver. It really leaves us with a heck of a question to think about, doesn't it? What's actually more dangerous? A powerful enemy or a useless ally?